Welcome back to a special journey into things you never knew about gemstones. What if everything you've been told about diamonds is only half the truth? Because somewhere out there are gemstones so rare, so misunderstood, that their value can quietly surpass diamonds, yet almost nobody is paying attention. And here's the part that should make you stop scrolling right now. The number one gemstone on this list has reached prices that can rival, even exceed, some of the finest diamonds. But almost no one talks about it. No headlines, no hype, no spotlight, which raises a dangerous question: are people ignoring it, or are they missing an opportunity? In today's world, attention drives value. But in finance, the biggest returns don't come from what everyone sees. They come from what everyone overlooks. And this video, this might just change the way you see gemstones and value itself forever. Don't skip this video if you don't want to make the wrong investment decision, because as we count down from number 10 to number 1, you'll discover stones that break every rule you thought you understood about beauty, rarity, and price. And here's something even more interesting. There's a chance, a small one, that one of these stones might already be closer to you than you think. So stay until the very end to discover the number one gem, because who knows, you might already own it. If you feel like this is the beginning of something new, drop a comment. I like this video, so I know you're on this journey with me. And don't forget to subscribe. If you're busy right now and don't have time to watch, save this video, because this isn't just a list. It's a journey into gemstones you've never truly understood. Top 10, Painite, the most valuable gem nobody wants. What if the rarest gemstone on earth is also the most ignored? In the first 30 seconds, here's the truth most people miss. Real value doesn't live where attention is. It lives where understanding is absent. And Painite is the perfect example. At first glance, Painite doesn't try to impress you. It carries a deep reddish brown color, sometimes flashing hints of orange or violet. It's not crystal clear, not blindingly brilliant like a diamond. Its shape, usually small prismatic crystal with sharp edges, raw, almost ordinary. Put it next to a diamond and most people would dismiss it instantly. But this is where financial logic flips everything. For years, Painite was officially recognized as the rarest mineral on Earth. At one point, only a handful of specimens existed worldwide. Meanwhile, diamonds are mined by the millions of carats every year. One is everywhere, the other is nearly non-existent. And in finance, the rule is simple. The lower the supply, the higher the potential upside. High-quality Painite has sold for prices that rival and in some cases exceed commercial diamonds, not because of mainstream beauty, but because of something far more powerful: scarcity premium. So why is it still ignored? Because Painite has no billion-dollar marketing machine behind it, no emotional branding, no cultural narrative like diamonds have built over decades. But here's the opportunity, because in investing, the biggest returns rarely come from what everyone understands. They come from what everyone overlooks. Top 9. Red beryl, the $10,000 gem hidden in plain sight. What if a gemstone rarer than diamonds is still being ignored right in front of us? Most people think they understand value. They see a bright red gemstone and assume it's ruby, familiar, common, replaceable. And that's exactly why red beryl gets overlooked. At first glance, red beryl looks stunning. A vivid, almost electric red with flashes of raspberry and crimson. Unlike the darker tones of ruby, its color feels sharper, cleaner, almost glowing from within. Its crystals are typically small, hexagonal, and highly defined. But here's the catch. Large, gem-quality stones are almost non-existent. Now let's shift to financial reality. Red beryl is estimated to be thousands of times rarer than diamonds. Not slightly rarer, dramatically rarer. It's found in only one primary location on Earth: Utah, United States. That means supply isn't just limited, it's geographically trapped. And in finance, that changes everything. While diamonds are distributed globally with a controlled supply chain, red beryl has no such system. No scaling, no mass extraction, just extreme scarcity. High-quality red beryl can reach $10,000 per carat or more, rivaling and sometimes surpassing many commercial diamonds. Yet, it doesn't dominate headlines. It doesn't flood jewelry stores. Why? Because it suffers from a dangerous problem: misidentification. People confuse it with ruby, and in doing so, they mentally downgrade its value. But from an investor's perspective, that's not a weakness. That's inefficiency. And inefficiency is where opportunity lives. Because when the market fails to recognize true rarity, that's when the smartest money quietly moves in. Top 8, Benitoite, the neon blue gem that outshines diamonds. What if a gemstone shines brighter than diamonds, but almost nobody knows it exists? In a market driven by attention, visibility creates value, but sometimes the most valuable assets are the ones hidden in the dark. And Benitoite is exactly that. At first glance, Benitoite looks unreal. It carries a deep sapphire blue color, but under ultraviolet light, it explodes into an intense neon glow, a level of brilliance that even diamonds struggle to match. Its crystals often form in sharp, triangular shapes, giving it a geometric, almost engineered appearance. It doesn't just reflect light, it transforms it. Now here's where things get interesting. Benitoite is found almost exclusively in one location on Earth, California. That alone places a hard ceiling on supply. Unlike diamonds, which are mined across multiple continents, Benitoite exists in a geologically isolated pocket. From a financial perspective, that's critical because when supply is both limited and localized, scalability disappears. And when scalability disappears, scarcity becomes permanent. High-quality Benitoite can command prices that rival and sometimes exceed mid-tier diamonds. Not because of mass demand, but because of its unique optical behavior combined with extreme rarity. So why isn't everyone talking about it? Because Benitoite lacks narrative power. No global campaigns, no cultural symbolism, no decades of psychological conditioning like diamonds. And in finance, perception often lags behind reality. That gap between what something is worth and what people think it's worth is where opportunity lives. Because when a gemstone can literally outshine diamonds but still remain unknown, that's not just rare, that's mispriced. Top 7, Taaffeite, the million times rarer gem nobody recognizes. What if a gemstone sat in collections for years, misidentified, and still no one noticed its true value? Here's something most people don't realize. One of the rarest gemstones on Earth wasn't even discovered in the ground. It was discovered by mistake, and that mistake is called Taaffeite. At first glance, Taaffeite doesn't scream value. It carries a soft violet to lilac tone, sometimes with hints of gray or pink. Its brilliance is subtle, not flashy like a diamond, not aggressively colorful like sapphire or ruby. The shape, typically faceted like other gems, but nothing about it immediately signals rarity, and that's exactly the problem. Taaffeite was originally mistaken for spinel, a far more common gemstone. In fact, it took years before experts realized they were looking at something entirely different, something exponentially rarer. From a financial perspective, this is where things get fascinating. Taaffeite is estimated to be over 1 million times rarer than diamonds. Let that sink in. While diamonds are mined, distributed, and marketed globally, Taaffeite exists in such limited quantities that most jewelers will never even see one in their lifetime. And yet, the price doesn't always reflect that level of scarcity. High-quality Taaffeite can reach thousands of dollars per carat, sometimes competing with premium gemstones, but it still flies under the radar compared to diamonds. Why? Because the market never built a story around it. No branding, no emotional hook, no demand engine. But in finance, when rarity exists without recognition, you don't have a weak asset. You have a pricing gap. And pricing gaps are where serious opportunities begin. Because when the world finally recognizes something that was always rare, the price doesn't adjust slowly. It moves fast. Top 6, Jadeite, the gem. Worth more than diamonds, yet misunderstood. What if one of the most expensive gemstones on Earth doesn't even sparkle? That question alone challenges everything most people believe about value. Because in the Western world, brilliance equals worth, shine equals luxury. And by that logic, Jadeite shouldn't even be in the conversation, but that assumption is exactly why it's underestimated. Jadeite, especially the highest grade known as imperial jade, carries a rich, vivid green, almost glowing from within. It's smooth, opaque to semi-translucent, often shaped into cabochons or carvings, rather than faceted cuts. No sharp sparkle, no fire like a diamond, just a deep, almost liquid color that feels alive. And here's where finance changes the story. Top-tier jadeite has sold for millions of dollars per piece, with per-carat values that can exceed high-end diamonds, not occasionally, consistently at the highest level. The reason? Extreme rarity combined with cultural demand, particularly across Asia. Unlike diamonds, which rely heavily on controlled supply and global marketing, jadeite's value is driven by natural scarcity and generational demand. The finest material comes primarily from Myanmar, and supply has been tightening for decades. So why is it still overlooked in many markets? Because it doesn't fit the Western definition of luxury. No sparkle means no instant recognition. No recognition means no mass demand. But from an investment perspective, that's not a flaw. That's a disconnect between perceived value and actual market behavior. And when a gemstone quietly outperforms diamonds at the high end while still being misunderstood by half the world, that's not just rare, that's strategic.
Top 5. Paraiba tourmaline, the electric gem that looks almost unreal. What if a gemstone glows so intensely it doesn't even look natural? At first glance, Paraiba tourmaline doesn't look like a typical gemstone. Its color is shockingly vivid, an electric blue to green that seems to glow from within, almost like neon light trapped inside a crystal. And that's not just perception. This unique glow comes from traces of copper, something extremely rare in gemstones. It gives Paraiba a level of saturation and brightness that very few stones on Earth can match. But here's where the real story begins. The original Paraiba tourmaline was discovered in Brazil in extremely limited quantities. Over time, those sources became nearly depleted. While similar material has been found in Africa, the finest Brazilian stones remain exceptionally rare and highly sought after. From a financial perspective, true high-quality Paraiba is extremely scarce. Color intensity directly drives value. Top stones can exceed $50,000 per carat, and unlike Alexandrite, which is about transformation, Paraiba is about visual impact, instant, undeniable, impossible to ignore. So why isn't it dominating the market? Because it's niche. It doesn't have the legacy of sapphire or ruby. It doesn't rely on tradition. It relies on something much more powerful, immediate perception of rarity. Because when something looks unlike anything else, the market doesn't need explanation. It reacts.
Top 4. Musgravite, the gem, so rare, it barely exists. What if a gemstone is so rare, most investors will never even get the chance to buy it? That's not hype, that's Musgravite. At first glance, Musgravite doesn't try to impress. Its color ranges from muted gray-green to soft violet or brownish tones. No explosive brilliance, no dramatic sparkle. Its faceted form looks clean, refined. But visually, it doesn't scream worth a fortune. And that's exactly why it gets ignored, because the human eye often confuses subtlety with low value. But in finance, subtle assets can be the most powerful ones. Musgravite is considered one of the rarest gemstones ever discovered. For decades after its identification, only a handful of gem-quality stones were known to exist worldwide. Not dozens, not hundreds, just a few. Now compare that to diamonds, mined, traded, and distributed globally at massive scale. Here's the shift in perspective. Diamonds operate in a controlled supply system. Musgravite exists in a natural scarcity system. And those two things are fundamentally different. High-quality Musgravite can command prices that rival or exceed premium diamonds. Not because of mainstream demand, but because of extreme rarity combined with collector-level exclusivity. So why isn't it more famous? Because it fails the visibility test. No marketing engine, no emotional branding, no cultural narrative. And in most markets, what isn't seen isn't valued. But in investing, that's where things get interesting, because when something is so rare that supply is almost theoretical, price doesn't follow demand. Price follows access. And when access is nearly zero, value doesn't just increase, it becomes untouchable. Top 3. Black opal, the dark gem that outshines diamonds. What if the most colorful gemstone on earth hides inside darkness? At first glance, black opal breaks every rule people associate with value. It's not clear. It's not colorless. In fact, it's dark, almost black at its base. And yet, within that darkness, it ignites. Flashes of electric blue, neon green, fiery red, and gold ripple across its surface like living light. No two stones are ever the same. Each one is a moving, shifting canvas, impossible to replicate, impossible to standardize. And that's where things start to get serious. Unlike diamonds, which are graded by a structure system, black opal operates on uniqueness. Its value comes from the intensity, pattern, and rarity of its play of color, an optical effect that no other gemstone can truly match. Now look at it financially. The finest black opals, especially those from Lightning Ridge in Australia, can reach tens of thousands of dollars per carat, competing directly with and often exceeding high-quality diamonds, not because of mass demand, but because each piece is effectively one of one. And here's the key difference. Diamonds can be categorized. Black opals cannot. So why is it still underestimated? Because it doesn't fit traditional expectations. People associate value with clarity and transparency. Black opal offers neither, at least on the surface. But beneath that surface, it delivers something far more powerful, unrepeatable rarity. And in financial terms, assets that cannot be standardized cannot be easily replaced, which means their value isn't just based on demand, it's based on irreplaceability. And when something can't be replaced, it doesn't compete with diamonds. It plays a completely different game.
Top 2. Grandidierite, the gem so rare. It almost doesn't exist. What if a gemstone is so rare, most people will never even see one in real life? Grandidierite isn't a household name, and that's exactly the point. At first glance, it displays a unique blue-green color, not as vivid as emerald, not as deep as sapphire, but something in between. A tone so uncommon that it doesn't quite resemble any other gemstone. In its finest form, it can be transparent with a soft inner glow, a combination that's incredibly rare. But here's where things get serious. Grandidierite has long been considered one of the rarest minerals on Earth, and even today, gem-quality specimens are extremely scarce. Most discovered crystals are opaque or unsuitable for jewelry. From a financial perspective, supply is nearly fixed. High-quality stones are exceptionally rare. Market awareness is still low implies meaning it's not fully priced, and transparent Grandidierite can reach tens of thousands of dollars per carat, yet it remains largely unknown in mainstream markets. And that's where the opportunity lies. Because when an asset is extremely rare, difficult to access, and not yet widely recognized, its true value doesn't just sit in the present, it lives in the gap between what it is and what people think it is. Top 1. Alexandrite, the $20,000 gem that changes everything. What if one gemstone could outperform diamonds, simply by doing something no diamond ever can? This is where the game completely changes. At first glance, Alexandrite looks elegant but unassuming. Under daylight, it shows a refined green to bluish-green tone, calm, controlled, almost conservative, the kind of color that doesn't scream for attention. But then the light shifts. Under warm indoor lighting, that same stone transforms into a deep red or purplish crimson, not gradually, instantly, like flipping a switch. It's not just rare, it's physically unpredictable, a gemstone that refuses to stay the same. And that's exactly where its value begins. From a financial perspective, Alexandrite isn't just rare, it's functionally unique. No diamond, no sapphire, no ruby can replicate this level of natural color change. The stronger and more dramatic the shift, the higher the value. Top Top-tier Alexandrite can exceed $20,000 per carat, often rivaling or surpassing high-end diamonds. But unlike diamonds, its value isn't built on marketing or controlled supply chains. It's built on something far more powerful: natural impossibility. Now, here's the real question. If something is rarer, more unique, and harder to replicate than diamonds, why isn't it more famous? Because it requires explanation. It doesn't deliver instant recognition. And in mass markets, anything that requires thinking gets ignored. But in investing, that's exactly where the edge is. Because when an asset does something nothing else can, and the market hasn't fully priced it in, you don't just have a rare gemstone, you have leverage. And leverage is where the biggest money is made.
So, after everything you've just seen, one question remains. Are diamonds really the king, or just the most well-marketed? Because from Painite to Alexandrite, these aren't just gemstones. They are proof that real value doesn't always sit in the spotlight. Sometimes it hides, waiting for the few who are willing to look deeper. And here's the truth most people never realize. The market doesn't reward what is obvious. It rewards what is misunderstood. That number one gemstone you just discovered, it wasn't just rare. It wasn't just expensive. It represents something bigger, an opportunity most people will never even notice. So the next time you see a diamond, ask yourself, are you looking at true value or just what the world told you to believe? If you feel like this video opened your eyes, even just a little, comment. I like this video, so I know you're thinking differently now. And if you're serious about discovering hidden value, rare assets, and the stories behind them, don't forget to subscribe. Because this journey, we're just getting started. And trust me, the next discovery might be even more unexpected.